The report, Linking Innovation with Inclusion, Demography, Equality, and the Future of San Diego, suggests economic prosperity requires closing racial, geographic, and income gaps in our county. Here with highlights of the study are my guest, Kira Green, Research and Policy Analyst for the Center on Policy Initiatives, and Bruce Resnick, Executive Director of the San Diego Housing Federation. And Kira, this report makes a link between social equity in San Diego and the region's future economic prosperity. What does one have to do with the other?
That's a great question. I mean, the real link here is that today's young people are tomorrow's workers, are the people who are going to make us a prosperous environment moving forward. And so we are seeing in the region that the families that are raising those children are falling behind in terms of the economic investment in their communities and in terms of the pay and conditions in their jobs. And so if we want to have a prosperous, we need to change that dynamic so that we're investing in those families, and that's to the benefit of all San Diegans to do that.
And Bruce, both the Housing Federation and CPI actually worked with the USC researchers on this report. From an affordable housing perspective now, what are your biggest takeaways from it?
Sure. Well, I think one thing the report does that's great is just sort of connects all the dots. But a lot of the recommendations are around the linking people in place, really focus on the cost of housing. And in San Diego, we know the issue. The average person knows whether they're paying rent or mortgage, too much of their paycheck is going into their housing. So in San Diego, about half the population is paying more than a third of their take-home pay on housing. That puts them at the category of cost burden. And it really takes away money from healthcare, healthy foods, education, all these other things they need to be investing in. And maybe even a more scary statistic, about a third of families in San Diego pay more than half of their take-home pay in rent or mortgage. And that really puts them at risk of falling into homelessness or really not being able to afford, basic necessities of their life. And of course, those numbers are much higher when you're talking about lower income populations in the region. Sure,
and it also means that they're not putting back into the community as far as being able to pay for anything else back in the community, any other incidentals. Now, Kira, the report talks about the 8 freeway as a dividing line here in San Diego. Nothing new here, right? We've heard this before between good housing and not so good housing, jobs, not so good jobs, education. So how does the report demonstrate why this division is important to consider when moving forward?
I think what the report does really well is describe the fact that those communities south of the 8 and in other parts of the region are where our young families are located. There are new demographic, and they are places where, when we look at the kinds of jobs that exist there for those families, they're often in our fastest growing industries like hotels and retail work, but those are also industries that pay some of the lowest wages. And that whole issue then becomes, how do those communities invest in themselves, in their retirement, in their children's education, in ways that move us forward in the future? And we want that, for all of us want that, because I want, when I'm older and retiring in this community, I want to know that there are people who can fill the kind of jobs that are important in this new economy. And today we have to invest in those families so that they can make those investments in themselves.
And speaking of investments, Bruce, the report actually calls for mixed income communities, saying that this is rather important. Tell us more about that.
Sure, it's an excellent point. And one of the other great things about this report is that it does actually have a solution-based take, which I think is very important, not just a problem statement. So it talks about investing in affordable homes, something that we've been working on. There's a great legislative package going on right now that would bring $1 billion statewide into affordable homes, make up for the loss of redevelopment, protecting against gentrification. That's really important. And then this focus on mixed income communities. And you can do that a couple ways. One is affordable housing can actually be anchors in lower income communities. So we see that in some places in Southeast San Diego or City Heights where, you invest heavily in these really high-end affordable housing units that also can attract business and can really make these sort of centerpieces of revitalizing these communities. But at the same time, we also want to go in other communities. We don't want to just concentrate all the lower income workers. We want to put housing in, more well-to-do communities. And we're seeing that in San Diego. And one of the important policies there is inclusionary, which is whenever you develop, you have to set aside a certain amount of that development for affordable units. And again, one of the reasons we think that's really important, there's 10 of the 18 cities in San Diego that have those kind of ordinances, is that it does promote that kind of mixed income community, which means that lower income folks have access to good schools and kind of basic services, but that kind of interaction, it really is critical. We don't want these sort of very divided, secluded communities. We want integrated communities in the region.
All right, we have to leave it there. Bruce Resnick and Keira Green, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.